to be reading 3 little vignettes, pieces from larger chapters from a book I've been working on. They're all about the space program, but I do write about other things. I write about thoroughbred racing and marriage and baby nephews and wine and life. And so I would just love to see you, so come see me over at One Champagne. Now, my first piece is called Rainbirds. And this was all inspired by the space program, which I did not expect. I wanted to write about the space program for my 3rd book, but it barged into line in front of number 2 while I was here. And I was having to think about water, of course, having to do with our theme. And when Grant called me with the wonderful news that I had been accepted, I was incredibly shocked because in my application materials, I did not mention water once. So I knew that I had to make up for it while I was actually here. And so I started pondering water the first couple weeks, and absolutely nothing happened except that I had to pee a lot. But the shuttle Atlantis, right now orbiting over our heads on her last mission, lifted off absolutely beautifully on the first attempt, which never happens. And so that really opened the floodgates, pun intended. Now, what helped Atlantis get up there was all of this water. What you're looking at here is the mobile launch platform on which the shuttle is built piece by piece. And the deal with this is that when the shuttle lifts off, it creates enormous waves of noise vibration. And if we're not cushioned by something, that whole stack would shake apart. What cushions it? Water. So we have 300,000 gallons of water dumping onto this platform in 41 seconds. It gets it down to a manageable level for the shuttle. And here you can see a shot from above. That is Columbia, lifting off a few years ago. Here, so when you see the shuttle lift off and you see those great billowing clouds, that's not from the solid rocket boosters right here. That is steam. That is steam happening from the fire from the SRBs and all of that water. So, meditating on that, I came up with this. This is called Rainbirds, little excerpt. For the glorious concoction of wires, connections, computers, and titanium on the launch pad, gravity is what feeds the Rainbirds. A spindly tower houses the water until 6 seconds before launch, and then the great pounding of the mechanical flash flood. The barriers are removed, and gravity brings it crashing down as the shuttle goes up. The space shuttle is a mechanical marvel. Over 2.5 million parts must tend to their own business while getting along with the others in order to launch over 4.5 million pounds. And yet the roar from the engines which propel it produces so much of one natural reality, sound, that it must be controlled by another. This triumph of human engineering would shake apart were it not for the most basic element of life. The same great washes of the ancient sea lapping at the base of the launch pad, the earliest pathways of this nation, the very conduit of conception. This enables the movement of the symbol of the modern age. There have been 132 performances and 4 tests of the sound suppression system. The most recent performance check came as part of a return to flight program in the wake of the loss of the shuttle Columbia. Less than a year after, officials stood in hard hats on the empty launch gantry, cheering as 300,000 gallons of life itself dashed away grime and salt and despair. It splashed on their khaki pants, it danced free in the Florida sunshine, and dripped into temporary bathtubs for scrub days. And then it returned itself to the sea. Baptized us, cleansed us. We begin again. Don't clap, don't take 5, don't clap. Stop! Do not recognize my brilliance as well done. This next piece of little vignette is called The Altitude of Tragedy. What you are looking at is a piece of the Space Shuttle Challenger. And as I'm about to read, when you think of Challenger, everyone thinks of that huge fireball that we saw on the news and the great, horrible lie of the solid rocket boosters. But as we'll see, water plays also a huge part in the aftermath. It wasn't just the shattering of the spacecraft. It was where the pieces wound up. When we think of Challenger, we think of sky. that piercing frozen sky quite wide enough to hold the blooming fireball. We think of that sky and not what lay beneath. Aerodynamics are not meant for the ocean floor. And yet there they were, a bit of a wing visited by a school of fish, the hinge of a cargo bay door waving with the sea anemones, black shield heat tiles carried to the tourist-laden shores of Cocoa Beach, where small plastic sand pails flashed in a gaudy vacation light. When the divers found the crew cabin, the strong aluminum which formed it had collapsed into a twisted mass of edges, wires, and reality. Harnesses remained firmly winched against the chests of blue flight suits, which rose and fell not with regular breath, but by the random passing of currents. The shuttle Challenger was named for a scientific vessel which sailed from England. It pushed westward with each wave, unconscious of the day when its namesake would enter into these same waters, slamming to the surface, but sinking weightless and graceful once more as it too sought the surface of the sea. Let's cheer up, let's cheer up. Water plays a really important role in where the Kennedy Space Center was fashioned. Right here, this little spit, if you think of the coast of Florida, how that little bump comes out towards the east, that's this. This is Cape Canaveral, where the very first launches took place. Look how close together those pads are. Not a lot of power in those rockets. When Apollo and the shuttle came, they moved over to these two launch pads up here on Merritt Island. And see how undeveloped Merritt Island is. That is because it is a national wildlife preserve right there on the launch pad. So I would drive to work and have to wait for a baby alligator to go by, and I'd see manatees waving at me from the pool by the vehicle assembly building. It was a phenomenal way to start the day. So this is called Launch Pad with a View. They call it the constellation Orion. And it is the highlight of nearly every NASA mission. Not the launch, not the spacewalks, not the adoring, respectful glances of women and men. It is this, the routine urine dump. What happens is that when astronauts release personal wastewater overboard in orbit, it freezes, suspended in the vacuum, and in the process creating a spectacular streaming light show. We peed all over the world, veteran Wally Schirra used to say, which was a little surprise, as Schirra was a pioneer in urine dump investigation. He dumped at sunset, he dumped at sunrise, he dumped at midday. He took pictures of all of it, and after he splashed down in the Pacific, he ordered prints of the best ones for his office. These are the facts of the matter then. Pee in space, seas on the moon. For the great flat landscapes on the moon are plastered with marine earth curves, reaching back to the geographical formation of the planet, the ocean of storms, the sea of tranquility. When an external tank, the huge orange bottle sucked dry by the main engines of the shuttle, is delivered to the Kennedy Space Center, it arrives not by jetpack or Mach 1, but by barge, genteeling its way from Louisiana up the turn basin of the languid Banana River. We are not only spacefarers, but riverboat gamblers, betting that the solid fuel won't burn out of control, that a window won't crack on orbit, that a glove won't float free in mid-spacewalk, that this is all worth it. Now you may clap.